Welcome to another episode of Toot Your Own Horn Music Matters. Today I'm with Ashleigh Hardin. Welcome, Ashleigh.
Thank you.
So happy to have you, and we are very excited to hear your story. Tell us how it began.
I wish I had like a super exciting story about how I chose the saxophone. It's not that deep. I actually saw someone playing it on TV, and I was like, "Oh, that looks cool. I want to do it." Uh, I grew up when I was little. My mom played piano around the house, and I was always kind of into it. So I started on violin, otherwise known as nails on a chalkboard. Was not my thing. It was not my thing until later, actually. Uh, so I played for a year or two when I was little, when I was in third grade because it was offered.
Yep.
Didn't stick with it. I moved to chorus because I still wanted to be involved in music. I just wasn't sure at that point what I was gonna do.
Yeah.
I think when I got a little older, I saw someone playing saxophone on TV and was like, "Ooh, I want to do that." And I was just really, really fortunate that my parents were able to afford private lessons, and that's at least how I got started on it. Anyway, yeah.
Oh, that's cool. So you liked the way it looked. You liked the music or the sounds that were coming out of it. So it was just totally visual, kind of.
Yeah, yeah. I don't know what I thought I was getting myself into, when I was in 8th grade. But I started lessons and then I kind of just got really good really really quickly. My mom was musical, but she kind of plays by ear more so than anything. So my parents definitely didn't know what they were getting themselves into when they started. So I'm thankful that they got me lessons, and certainly no one in my family has taken music as far as I have. So when I started lessons and I started getting really good, I actually outgrew the first teacher that I was with, and I ended up studying with Tom Monroe.
Uh-huh.
And
How did you know you outgrew them?
that's a good question. It just got to the point where, lessons were kind of repetitive, and, you know, I would be playing the same thing over and over again, and I was kind of noticing, like, I don't know, I could not outplay the teacher, but I was pretty similar to her level, and I wasn't learning a ton. Um, I think that student teacher relationship is really, really important. And not that she wasn't a nice lady, but it was kind of starting to get obvious that I needed to be pushed a little bit more. So we ended up asking my high school band director, hey, what are some teachers in the area? And that's how I got stuck with, or I got put with Mr. Tom Monroe. So when I started lessons, I think he knew probably before anybody else that I kind of had something musical about me. It wasn't just, oh, I like being in band. It was really, oh, there's something special here. So I got pushed a lot harder in lessons. So by the time I was in ninth and 10th grade, I was learning all of my scales. But I really commend him for making it fun for me. Nobody wants to sit and practice scales for 3 hours, but he definitely made it a challenge, and we played duets. It was, let's find songs that have those scales in them, and I really have taken a beat, now that I'm a teacher, I do the same thing. Uh, we it's kind of like learning your alphabet, your ABCs. We don't just simply teach kids, "Oh, the first letter's A." We sing it to them,
Right.
you know? So it was around that time that I really, started picking up on it really, really quickly, and I got involved in my high school band. Uh, I tried marching band for the first time. That was that was an experience. So I had just only picked up the saxophone a year prior, and then all of a sudden had to play it on the move. But I loved it. Holy cow! It was such a just different atmosphere. You were able to play more fun music, more recognizable music, and something physical, I guess, because I personally have really, really bad ADHD, so, it gave my brain multiple things to focus on. So we were never the competitive marching band, but certainly being involved in the football games, the making pictures on the field piqued my interest. So, when I got through high school, or when I was going through high school, anytime you gave me the opportunity to play saxophone, I was in it. I have my band letter still that is covered in pins. Uh, that was my niche, I guess. I mean, you find your clubs in high school, and it's not to say that you have to be exactly like me where I took it as seriously as I did, but I think the really cool thing about band is you have people that went on to be doctors or lawyers or teachers or whatever, but they were all in band with myself. So I was in pit orchestra where I was playing for the musicals. I was in jazz band. I was in concert band. I was in wind ensemble, marching band, pep band, any band. I was in it. Uh, and I got to know my high school band director pretty well. He was my favorite teacher. Still is.
So you were really supported. You had friends and ensembles. You were taking private lessons and you were excelling at it. So it was all green lights, all go, go, go.
Yeah. Yeah. And again, like I happen to be the exception of the rule, right? I'm the one that took it all the way to the point where I was a music ed major in college. And I think that now that I'm teaching adults and kids, they're kind of like under the assumption that if you're going to take private lessons or be involved in music, then you have this, mandate to take it. And it's not that. Which kind of leads me into college. And high school was fun and I loved it, and I'll never forget those days being in band. But I finally realized why I liked band as much as I did, and it's because I went to college out of state. So you got all of these red towels behind me. I moved from Maryland to Western Kentucky in Bowling Green, Kentucky. So yeah, I had family there, but I remember that first night moving in before band camp. I cried myself to sleep. Like, what did I get myself into? I'm three states away from mom and dad. This is my first time being on my own. I have no friends here. What in the world? I must have made the biggest the biggest mistake of my life. But that first day of band camp, I started noticing I know why I like this so much, and it's because you have a common interest that's not competitive necessarily. Like, we all have a common goal. And I met so many different people from so many different career paths, from so many different majors, and all they wanted to do was play their instrument, just like me. That was it. And that really became my safe space because, believe it or not, music majors come to this point where we end up hating playing our instruments just because we do it for 12, 13 hours a day. But marching band became that safe space for me where it was easy. I didn't have to think about it. I was doing it because I loved it, not because I had to. Um, so I've been to more saxophone weddings than I can count on my hands.
What's a saxophone wedding? Oh, two saxophonists who get married?
Yeah, it's two saxophones that get married, or like the adopted saxophones, we call them, where friends of mine from saxophone section. I've crashed several weddings. Just that's the camaraderie that you build in marching band. And I think that's where I try and tell my students now, I'm like, please just get to high school and do marching band. Even if not marching band, you find that camaraderie in band, you always have a friend. You always have a friend in band. So when I got to college, then the other thing that piqued my instrument is when your team does well, you do well, right? So marching band, it's in college is not the DCI level, unless you're in an HBCU band or something like that. It's, to perform in front of football fans. And so I remember my first season, we didn't do terribly good. We kind of were on the losing side, but my second season, we went 6-6, and 6 wins gets you eligible for a bowl game. And bowl games are when the team gets to travel in various states and compete, right? So now I'm like, all right, for sure, I get to travel now. I get to travel with the team. I'm getting paid to play my instrument. I'm going to new states. So my first ever bowl game was in Detroit, Michigan. And one of my best memories that, my bandmates will never let me live me down is as soon as I stepped off the bus into this giant pile of snow, I got stuck. And my bandmates had to get me out in order to, go perform. And I lost my shoe. There's still a shoe missing in Michigan. So I marched the whole game in my socks. That was fun.
Oh, no.
But it's those type of memories that really, will stick with you for a long time. I remember when, So, of course, I was a music major in college. I decided originally going in, I was going to be a performance major. And then my saxophone teacher there was like, "I think education major is your better bet. You're more likely to find a job." And I don't know, teaching came naturally to me, so I ended up doing the ed major, and I'm really glad that I did. And now that kind of after that bowl game experience, after going to Detroit, to Michigan, to Florida, to all kinds of different places, I officially graduated and I started substitute teaching. And I actually started a chapter of Sigma Alpha Iota on my campus. So I graduated, and now music has led me into like some of my best friends, meeting my best friends of all time. Uh, Starting that chapter, it was a music fraternity, a music service fraternity brings in this aspect of like serving others, bringing music to people who need it the most. Uh, that kind of formed me into the teacher that I was, because I was surrounded by all of these women that had a common goal of bringing music into communities that needed it. And I ended up student teaching in a Title I district, which just basically means it depends on the state, but 60% or more of your students live below poverty line, and they need that extra help. So student taught in a Title I district, and that really solidified, okay, I want to go into these schools because if I can convince these kids that playing an instrument is their ticket out of poverty, I'd be doing something right. And so I graduated. I was doing SAI for a long time, and then I grew up. I turned 26, lost, couldn't be on dad's insurance anymore, so I had to find a job. And so I moved back. I moved back home to live with my parents, and I got a job in Prince George's County. And it's been rough. It's been great, but it's been rough. It's definitely a different world. I spend most of my adult money buying used instruments, buying used instruments to sell, to trade, or to lend off to kids, because I'm on a mission. Personal mission of mine is to bring it to these kids, because they certainly are the ones that need it. And that's why I said in the beginning, these parents, a lot of times when their kids bring home this permission slip that says, "I want to be in the band," they're like, "No way." Like, "I'm not musical. You must not be musical." And it's a lot of convincing the adults, "Hey, just let him give it a shot." Nobody's expecting you to go on and being in the president's own band. It's just fun. Even if you do it for elementary school only, middle school and high school are certainly when the opportunities come. But I would say to any parent who has a kid that bring home that permission slip, just encourage them to do it for 1 year. If after 1 year you're like, "Oh, it's not for me," then fine. But most kids, most kids, I had a good, like, 96% retention rate. Most kids wanna do it. So, eventually, I would drive that passion forward into creating my own LLC. So now I am the owner, founder, and primary teacher of Atypical Music LLC, and that focuses on neurodivergency in music, because I have ADHD, and I knew that was where I thrived. And you could motivate me to do basically anything else by telling me, "If you do this, you can participate in another ensemble." So that's kind of where I'm at today. Because of band. Oh, I forgot one more thing. So when I got into the school district during COVID, the
Yep.
Baltimore Ravens marching band decided to do a virtual fight song, right? So I participated with one of my students, and of course, then she told me they were having auditions. And the very next year, I auditioned and made the Baltimore's Marching Ravens. So we are the longest consecutive running marching band. And I won't go too much into the history of that band, but if you watch the documentary, The Band That Never Died, crazy, absolute wild story. And never in my life would I think, picking up a saxophone some 20 years ago would lead me into being a professional musician. So, yeah.
Yeah, for sure. And what is it like for these kids? Tell us a little bit more about working with these kids that are, struggling to just have, enough resources for life, and what impact is it making, and share some stories.
Oh, I've got a few. I've got a few good ones. So, again, it's mostly the adults that discourage these kids, because they're like, I've never seen an ounce of musical interest in you." So I've had quite a few come to me with, no one, they're like me, they have no one musical in their family. And it turns that they're actually ridiculously good at it. Right. So I've had one trumpet student I'll never forget who just ate it up. Every time I gave him something, he would come back the next week and have it. Um, and I only get to see these kids twice a week, right? But I remember specifically this one student because he loved trumpet so much and he was practicing it all the time. Uh, he would research it on the internet and figure out, what kind of trumpet repertoire am I supposed to be playing. So he figured out that, the primary purpose of the trumpet was for military bands. And he came to me one day and was like, I want to learn how to play taps. I- So being the music teacher that I was like, okay, well, listen, we start on first valve. You've got all these partials. It's kind of high for a fifth grader, but why not? Let's give it a shot. So he comes back, and crazy enough, the range of the like an elementary trumpet should be that of maybe like 5 or 6 notes. We don't tend to go past 5 or 6 notes, right? He's got 12, 13, 14 notes, crazy high notes. So then we teach him how to play it on an open partial to emulate like a bugle call. And I look out one day, and as the flag is being lowered because he's on safety patrol, he's out there playing his trumpet and he's playing taps while the flag is being lowered. I was like, "Oh, that's cool." So I asked my colleagues, I was like, when did, and they're like, "Oh my gosh, he does it every single day when the flag is being raised and lowered." I was like, "Okay." So I come up to him like, "Dude, that's awesome. I'm really proud of you. That's sick. Like, holy cow, I didn't know you were doing it every day. By the way, we usually play taps when the flag is being lowered. Kind of weird to do it when it's being raised. We have a different bugle call for that." So, um, then he goes on and he starts learning all these cadences. And specifically, when we talk about the impact that this is having on this kid, because I gave him so much confidence in band and because he gained so much confidence learning how to play the trumpet, all of a sudden, this kid that otherwise had behavioral issues, I was getting kicked out of class a lot, that was being a nuisance in fourth grade. In fifth grade, I made it abundantly clear, hey man, you're representing yourself, your band, and me. Like, if you're gonna be pulled out of class to be in band, then I better see some major behavior improvements. And that's not to say that he made a complete 180. Of course, there are still issues. Change doesn't happen overnight, but his teachers were commenting just how much confidence he had, how much he became a leader in the classroom, how much less of a problem he was being. And through that, because I saw that kind of potential, I reached out to several of my colleagues and I was like, "Dude, we have to give this kid a trumpet. I can't let him borrow an instrument for the school year and then tell him, 'Hey, stop practicing over the summer.'" So, through a little bit of help and through a trumpet player friend of mine, we were actually able to raise enough money to buy him a decent trumpet, and we gave it to him. So,
Oh, that's amazing. What did his
yeah.
parents say, or what were his parents surprised how much he took to it, or?
Yeah, yeah. I mean, it was a kind of a rough situation. Mom and dad had split, so both his parents coming together to see him on his concert was something, and they were like, "You have no idea the impact or the difference that you've made in his life." And I'm just there to fuel the fire, man. Not every kid is gonna take to it like he did, but I definitely said, just make sure that he keeps doing it. I don't care if you get him private lessons, just make sure that he does it throughout middle school and high school. Don't let him quit until after high school, because I just know that that's gonna bring something to him that he desperately needs. Uh, so
Can you put in words at all what you think that thing is? Because adults probably need it too.
I think it's just a safe space, like I was talking about in marching band. A lot of kids find that everything else around them can be totally disruptive. I could be going to 4 different houses. I could be, dealing with a death in the family, or I could be dealing with some really strong emotional turmoil, but finding a way to escape all of that and just focus on practicing something is really what drives a lot of these kids. A lot of the ones I teach, at least. And I'm very fortunate enough to just tell them that I've been through similar struggles. I've been through not nearly too much as what they have. I had a pretty good upbringing, but anytime life got hard, anytime I felt like I wanted to quit, the tenacity and grit that came from just sticking with an instrument for 5 or 6 years drove me into playing it 20 years later. And I've met so many adults that, they're even in the Ravens band, we have, again, like I was saying, all kinds of different careers, and they just come together once a week to escape whatever adult life has thrown at them. And we come together with a common purpose and forget about it. We leave the drama at the door. We check it at the door and, leave it be for 3 hours and just come together for some physical exercise, for some brain exercises with musicality. So that's what I'm trying to instill in 4th and 5th graders, which is a lot. I only see them two days a week, but I keep trying to tell them, keep going, keep going. And even in my private studio, I have kids like that, and I try and find very unique performance experiences to show them what it can be like. So I know I've personally performed at farmers markets. I've performed at the Museum of the Bible in Washington, D.C. during Christmas time. And I've brought some of my kiddos up to perform with me. Just recently in Gettysburg, Pennsylvania, they were doing 100 Nights of Taps, and one of my students, very similar to the one that I was talking about, wanted to learn taps, and I made him do it, even as, a 10-year-old. Just having those experiences, saying, oh my gosh, this is something I worked really, really hard for, and look what I've achieved at 10 years old, typically drives them further into the music world. So, yeah.
Probably also at 20 and 30 and 40 and 50, because if it's foreign to you.
Yeah. Yeah. I even have adults that pick up instruments now. I've got students in their 70s that are learning the guitar for the sake of learning. Just, again, it's a brain exercise. And no, you don't pick up on it quite as quickly as someone who's 8, 9, 10 years old. Their brains are sponges. But that's not to say that you can't learn it. I'm in my 30s learning, 12, 13, 14 different instruments because it's fun. It's new. It's something new to focus on. So never too old.
So if somebody was listening to the story and really inspired, what would you say to them to get them to pick up a wind instrument right now and try?
I would say here's YouTube University is your best friend. So you're going to go to your local music store. I would suggest renting for at least, 2 or 3 months until you get a handle on whether or not you're actually going to do it or not. Go to a local music store, any music store that rents. Go into a practice room with someone who kind of has a feel for what they're doing. Typically, if they can play, flute in a music store, they have a general handle on clarinet and saxophone, right? So you're going to go into a room. They're going to show you, a good teacher is going to show you at least how to make sound on it and pinpoint for you. Oh my gosh, you have a really nice sound on the flute. Maybe you should try flute. Oh, wow, you got a great sound on clarinet. Right away, just play with clarinet. And then the same thing with saxophone. You don't have to take private lessons right away. There's so many resources on Google, on YouTube. Find a friend that played in high school or in college to show you the ropes. Get a band book, a method book that walks you through the first couple of notes, and try to be patient with yourself. Hot cross buns is a major milestone that every time you go through an instrument, if you get to the point where you play hot cross buns, that's awesome. I think too often adults get too deep into it where they want to be good at something right away. And it takes something like 1,000 hours of practice to be a master at it. But 1,000 hours starts with a minute. And just pick it up in your free time. Just have it on hand. And then, progressively as you get better at it, then my recommendation would be to find like a community band. There's plenty of websites that show you local community bands in there. And then you'll never know where you're going to go, where it's going to take you in life. So.
And also social media is wonderful. If you are, there's all kinds of avenues for asking people questions and you'll get floods of responses. Yeah. It's a help, free advice.
Yeah. Yeah. And, a lot of music teachers that are retired and older, they may charge less than someone who's at a professional level and doesn't quite have the time to devote to it. If you're involved in church at all, gosh, you'd be surprised how many people play an instrument that you never knew about, kind of thing. So definitely ask around, but it starts with a single minute of practice. And if you can dedicate I tell my students 3 minutes. That's it. 3 minutes a day. If you can devote 3 to 5 minutes a day practicing, then you'd be surprised what kind of progress you make in a month, even. And really, the secret, don't tell my students, okay? Really, the secret is when we tell them 3 minutes, we don't actually mean 3 minutes. When you tell them 3 minutes, that gives them a goal, right? Chances are 3 minutes is going to turn into 10 or 15 or 20 or 30, right? And then when you do that 2 or 3 times a week, that's how you make progress. But don't tell my students I said that.
No.